What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Steelers Hangover. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me, as always, Shannon White. Shannon, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Beautiful sunny day today, and ready to talk some Steeler football.
Yeah, and this time there's a quite a bit of news as the Steelers, or as the NFL had their owners meetings, and the Pittsburgh Steelers owner, or well, no, I don't think the owner spoke yet, but Omar Kahn spoke here recently, and so did Mike Tomlin. They had some
Yep.
interesting things to say. Um, But before we get into what they said, we have a couple of things that we need to talk about. First, some signings. First is that the Steelers signed Kyle Allen. Um, he is a quarterback formerly of the Buffalo Bills, and Dean Laurie on defensive end. I think he played with the Packers and the Minnesota Vikings here recently. What are your thoughts on? Well, oh yeah, they also had wide receiver Quince Watkins also signed today. What are your thoughts about the acquisitions? Any of these guys you see as guys that may actually see some significant time on the field?
Well, it happened. Uh, I just recently got home, and uh, my phone was going off, and I saved the transactions where they signed these guys. Uh, so I'm not real familiar. I just know that Kyle Allen backed up Josh Allen for the Bills, and so he had kind of an easy job. Uh, but
I believe
you
it's
know
his
he,
brother.
uh,
I believe they're brothers.
oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I seen him play a little bit in the preseason last year, and he looked the part. So I'd have to do some more digging into him because I'm not that familiar. And Leary, I'm not familiar with at all, so I really can't even speak on him. I've been paying attention to a lot of guys they might look at signing
Hmm.
at defensive tackle, but I'm just like I said, I'm just not familiar enough about him to even comment yet. But now Quez Watkins, that was this morning. So I
Yeah.
have, and I am familiar with him. I don't know if a lot of our viewers remember, but when he was fighting to make the Eagles squad, he had a big preseason game against the Steelers, and he caught a long touchdown pass. And then when they blew the Steelers out in Philly 2 years ago, he also had a long play, a big play.
Hmm.
So I think the Steelers were really familiar with him. He had victimized the Steelers a couple of times. So, and then of course Andy Waddle I'm sure is very familiar with him, and he brings them a lot of speed. I think it was 4.38 or something
Hmm.
like that coming out of college, and um, he's taller than Calvin Austin in that he's 6 foot,
Hmm.
legit. But he's only like he was 175 pounds when he was drafted, and now he's like somebody said like 185. So he's not going to be a great blocker. He's a slot guy, so he's not going to
Gotcha.
be a great blocker. But I think that he will give him speed and that threat out of the slot, and he's a willing blocker, so he'll try. He's bigger than Calvin Austin at least. So I think that these are good depth signings, but nothing to move the needle. But the Steelers have got to fill out the roster, and they're definitely getting faster, so that's good.
Yeah, 100%. Getting faster and more speed is always a good thing. The signings to me meant a few things. First, if we look at the Allen signing, that tells me that the Steelers are probably not going to target a quarterback in this draft. They're going to need to get a rookie quarterback in. I foresee Kyle Allen probably being your third string QB. So that fourth, rookie QB is probably going to be of the undrafted
Yep.
variety. So I don't see it's going to be anybody that's going to push for any type of future, which but means another thing to me that the Steelers are confident in the quarterback room that they currently have, as far as perhaps one of these quarterbacks being the future. And I think they definitely have the talent to do so. One is going to be a little bit older, so we'll see how long he'll last. But
Mm-hmm.
I digress. And when it came to Quez Watkins, I knew about the speed, but and I knew he had some games against the Steelers, and Mike Tomlin usually tends to sign some of those players like the Joe Schoberts of the world that
Yep.
had a game against the Steelers, and next thing you know, when they're a free agent, they're Steeler. And For me though, I thought this was perhaps a returner, a kickoff
He
returner.
does return kicks, yes.
Right now there's some new rules going on when it comes to the kickoff, and have they been approved yet, or is it still pending?
The last I saw, it was still pending. The two different, I can't remember which team, might have been the Saints, submitted it. Wasn't it like a similar rule that they had in the XFL or something?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
It basically what it does, and I'll read it off real quick, is if you kick it into the outside of the end zone or like a touchback, then the person or the team would get the ball at the 30-yard line. So they're trying to set up returns. So you have an area where the ball can get kicked into, and they're going to put the receiving team blockers closer. So right now they're stand about 10 yards apart. The kickoff team's at the 35, they're at the 45. Now the kickoff team, if this goes through, will be at the 35, and the return team will be at the 40. Now I don't believe, from what I remember, I'm trying to look at it real quick, that if they can't move until the ball is caught, I believe.
Yes, I did read that they can't move till the ball's caught. Yes.
And if there is so it says your kickoffs would include a landing zone that stretches from the goal line to the 20-yard line. Balls landing in that zone must be returned or downed. A down ball would give the offense the ball at the 20-yard line. A kick that does not reach the landing zone would be treated as an out of bounds, meaning the offense would start at the 40-yard line. Touchbacks would give the offense the ball at the 30. It was originally the 35 under the initial proposal, but was tweaked Sunday, according to Sherford. So, there's a zone that they have to kick into, and your kicker's the team's penalized if the kicker don't kick it in there. They kick it out of bounds, the offense gets on the 30. So, how do you feel about those rules? First and foremost, are you for them? Are you against them? What are your thoughts?
Well, in all honesty, I'm an old school purist. I hate this new rule stuff, and I'm all for player safety, and that's why I'm happy about the new helmets, the new technology, doing away with the horse collar tackle. And I know in a minute we're going to talk about the hip drop tackle. I'm for safety when we're talking about long term CTE and stuff like that. But now it's just getting a little ridiculous. I don't remember that many guys getting hurt severely on kickoffs. Now, they said there was a lot of concussions that we didn't see because they went off the field and went into the tent, and, they're special teams guys. So we didn't see it. So,
Right.
But you're taking what used to just be, I was perfectly fine with last year, all the touchbacks. Because to me, you bring it out, usually only bad things are going to happen. So I'm always like, stay in there, down it, take it at the 35. You know what I'm saying? So I think that they kind of are going a little bit overboard, and with what I thought was just part of the game and an exciting play. Like, you really can't even do onside kicks anymore because nobody can move until the ball is hit. So, the percentage was always low, but now it's minuscule. Like, of how many balls are actually recovered by the kicking team. So, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of all these, the kinder, gentler rules, because if you ain't careful, you're going to have guys going low, and you're going to see guys get their knees wiped out, and that's can be a career ender right there. So, they're asking these guys to make split-second decisions at full speed, and a lot of times it's just impossible.
Right. I understand your side. For me, I kind of like it and I don't like it. I like the fact that it seems like this play is going to be a play again. There's going to be a reason to have a kickoff returner. It's going to change some things, in my opinion. It's going to change the way teams, put together their roster, because now the special teams is going to be a component of that. There's going to be a return game. those bodies that you put out there are going to be different, but they also have to occupy, other positions, right? You can't just get 11 guys specifically for special teams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're going to have to find guys that are athletic and able to do both. And it'll be interesting how teams, build their rosters from that, standpoint. I'm for the player safety aspect of it as well. I think that, doing it this way, it would, help out with some of the injuries that maybe perhaps we don't see. The one thing that I'm, kind of against is the complexity, just kind of reading over it.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's going to probably take some time to get used to. I saw some XFL, but I really didn't care for the rules or things of that nature. I just knew that kickoffs had to be returned. But yeah, the complexity right now for me, it's a little complex. Let me kind of figure it out, maybe see it in practice, and then, I'll see if I like it or not. I do. We got it from the live chat that it was approved, and I think I did hear that it was approved, but it was a 1-year trial, so they're going to check it out if it works, and it's something that enhances the game. Then they're going to go ahead and keep it, and we'll see. And you mentioned that other rule. We'll get into that one real quick. The hip and tackle. This one, I mean, I understand there's been some injuries as of late, and that's typically what causes a rule change is a few injuries to some high impact players. But on this one, it's kind of like what is the player supposed to do if they're in the trail mode?
Yep.
I don't understand. They're going to dive at the feet.
Well, I mean, it's like the most hip drop tackle injuries I saw last year with the Tony Pollard or Mark Andrews. All these situations, the defender is trying to tackle the ball carrier from the side. And you wrap up like you're supposed to, proper form tackle, you wrap up. But they have momentum going forward, and you're coming from the side. So they're just going to drag you. They're pushing you, and they're fighting for the first down or the touchdown, depending on where you are on the field. So naturally, guys get a hold, and they leave their feet, to use their body weight to pull the ball carrier to the ground. That's been going on since the beginning of football. I mean, it's not a dirty play. I understand horse collar because you're grabbing that area of the back behind above the nameplate, and you're pulling down, and it causes a lot of knee injuries and ankle injuries and broken legs because of that torque. And I was fine with that. And that's easy to call because you can tell if a guy grabs into that. How are you going to call this? I mean, because a lot of times if it's a combo tackle, they're probably not even going to see if somebody does a hip drop, on the backside. I just think it's going to be very hard to enforce. And Dave Schofield said yesterday on a podcast that he figures there'll be a lot of fines the next week. It won't even be a penalty. They'll miss it. And then the NFL's going to go back and fine people. Well, that's a disaster. I mean, Jalen Warren last year got, I don't know how many fines for blocking with the top of his helmet.
Yeah.
But he's like 5'7", blocking these guys that are a foot taller than him sometimes. And he has to throw his weight in there. And so he'll hit him with his helmet. But he's hitting him in here. That's not the definition of the rule. Again, that's another rule for player safety. Well, Jalen Moore's just playing football, and they're taking that away from him and fining him. And I feel that's what's going to happen with this new rule, that it's going to be a lot of fines the next week. And you're making it to, how can a defender actually do his job? Because you can't hit too low. You can't hit a quarterback low. You can't hit him high. You can't hit a ball carrier or a receiver high. And there's so many rules now that the defense is handcuffed.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there's they're taking every hit away from the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And, these are professional, strong athletes that are running
Yeah.
down the ways. I mean, if you have somebody who is, significantly bigger than yourself, like for instance, a defensive back going up against, maybe a bigger running back,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to go low. And if you force them to go in the middle, you're going to have a lot of defensive backs hurt.
Oh gosh, did you watch any of the flag football at the Pro Bowl?
No, I did. No, I didn't. I think
That is, if they ain't careful, that's what we're going to get to. Because the NFL thinks that the fans just want points, points, points. Just light up the scoreboard, and the defense is just an afterthought. If they can make a big play, an interception, or a sack, that's fine. Other than that, a regular tackle, we're not interested in tackles. We want points. Well, see, the purist, the true football fan doesn't want that. And they're one step away from having the same product they put out for the Pro Bowl now, which is flag football. That's fine for the Pro Bowl, but I don't want that in the regular season or the playoffs. I don't think nobody does.
No, that's not something anybody wants. Like I said, I understand the player safety aspect, but there's also the physicality aspect of the game and the understanding that this is a physical game that they are participating in, and one that we the fans are choosing to watch. And so,
do you not think? I believe that I always said the players deserve the money. They deserve the big money because it's big business. It's a billions of dollar industry now. And I have no problem with that. But part of that, there's risk involved. Now, some risk you can get rid of, like, not rid of it, but you can minimize it. And with the technology and different things. And I'm all for getting rid of, and we don't want nobody with CTE.
Yeah.
But broke legs and twisted ankles and hurt knees, that's part of the game. When full grown, large, extremely large and fast individuals are running into each other, even with equipment on, these things are going to happen. You cannot make it totally safe. If you try to do that, you're going to make it totally boring. And I think we all watch it I love the big hits as much as I love the touchdowns.
Oh, yeah.
I always did. It was part of the game. And I said, well, they're getting paid because a lot of them have arthritis. As we know, things happen as we get older. But they also were very rich. But now it's like, okay, we're going to pay them even more, but we're going to make it even more boring because we don't want anybody to get hurt. I mean, they're taking it a little too far.
I don't disagree with you on that one for sure. Yeah, man. You kind of paused a little bit, but it kind of split up there, and I got the grasp of it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's going a little too far. I understand. Like I said, this is a physical game.
Yep.
The players understand the possibilities of what can happen when you go into football. I played when I was in high school. I didn't go any further than that, but I played when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And even at that age, I saw some pretty serious injuries, on the football field, broken arms, broken legs, things of that nature, and understood that was a possibility with myself on any given play. In fact, I had hyperextended my elbow once pretty badly. And, I continued to play. That wasn't the last time that I played. And many of these players that are out there have been injured or seen injuries themselves. So, I understand, the player safety aspect of it, but it is a physical sport. It is a physical game. I mean, it's football.
Yeah.
Let's keep it that, you know what I'm saying? So there was some other rule changes that had occurred. One of them are being proposed, that is, one of them being the possibility of reviewing the play clock if somebody actually went past the delay a game. What are your thoughts on the ability to do that?
Yeah, I seen that there was I don't remember what you call the guy in the review. I swear I can't think of what you call him. That reviews the play and helps make the decision officially. Right. That he would be able to do that. I guess call timeout signal down to the ref, they stop the game, and because sometimes it can be glaring, and they just miss it.
Mhm.
But that I think they just voted on that today, if I ain't mistaken. So I didn't have time to really go through it and make sure that, because my thing is, after what's happened with the Steelers, I'll just say Jesse James and leave it there. If there's a way that one of these new rules can screw the Steelers, it'll happen.
Right.
So I get nervous when they start doing those rules like that.
And I do too, man. That's not the only one. The last time they made a rule where they can review a penalty was ended up in a bad situation. It was the pass interference review against the Seattle Seahawks when Mason Rudolph came in for the first time. There was a horrible pass interference review. It wasn't called, as a pass interference. Seattle challenged it. It turned it over, and I believe they ended up scoring on that drive. So, yeah.
It always seems to work against the Steelers.
It sure does. Yeah, the last one that has been proposed is is moving back the trade deadline. It's this is one that the Pittsburgh Steelers had actually put in. This is one of theirs that said that they were wanting this to be moved back. The Steelers asked to move it back 1 week, as I think there were 5 other teams who also bid it in for this proposal, and they wanted it moved back 2 weeks. Does this have any effect on the game whatsoever, in your opinion? And why even have a deadline?
Now, as far as why I have a deadline, I don't know either. I really don't. I mean, I guess you could say, well, there could be, a competitive balance issue if a team that is suck makes the deal to help a team get ready to go in the playoffs. If you wait till too late in the season, because nowadays it seems like everybody's eligible still in the playoff hunt to week 12 or 13. Because it's with parity. But last year, if you think about it, when the Steelers had them rash of injuries, they happened right after the trade deadline. And it was a situation that would have been really nice if the Steelers could have tried to trade for somebody to come in and help an inside linebacker, let's say, instead of having to, start going through people's practice squads trying to find somebody, competent. So I'm all for. I would move it back 2 weeks, and give them, that extra time. And I don't have a problem with it at all. But I'm like you. I don't even see why, other than the competitive balance, that you even need a deadline.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that moving it back maybe the 2 weeks or shoot to the end of November. Right now it's the last end bit of October. Move it back a month, to the end of November. And I understand, if a team is, going downhill and they end up trading everybody away, to, maybe perhaps, get a better draft deal. So they tank. There you go. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Perhaps they tank, right? But there are teams that do that anyways. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, or set some of their guys. They really, and they just set them because they're not trying to be competitive.
Yeah, or for financial reasons. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers' current quarterback Russell Wilson was benched last year for such reason.
Yep.
So, no, I get it, and I understand those aspects. They want it to be competitive, but teams are going to get around it. And I just think that if you had a team that was going into the playoffs and they had some sort of major injury, and there was a team that was willing to trade, and there was 2 teams that were, had an agreement, I don't understand why there should be a rule against it. It's mind-boggling to me. But I do like and hope that they do move it back, the 2 weeks, if that's all they get the opportunity to do so. If not further, that would be great. But real quick, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about some of the things that Mike Tomlin and Omar Kahn said during the meeting today. So don't go anywhere. Just a few words from our sponsors. And welcome back to the Hangover. Thank you for sticking tuned with us. I'm Daniel, alongside with me is Shannon White. Before we get back into the conversation, Shannon, do you have any anything coming out on the steelcurtainnetwork.com website?
No, I did my random observation article on the free agency thus far, and so I'm this week I plan on doing the Steeler stock report thus far, ahead of the draft, about where they are and what they need to focus on moving forward. So, but that'll be coming up later in the week.
Good deal. Make sure you guys go check that out when it comes out. And in the meantime, in between time, you can go see all the other articles that are coming out by various tremendous amount of different writers. The Steel Curtain Network has boosted up their writers, and so more articles are coming out. Go check it out, steelcurtainnetwork.com. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that Omar Kahn addressed today was the center position, and he stated, "You just have to be patient. I'm confident by the time we get to the start of the season, you will have the 53 guys for us, regardless of position. You just have to be patient and understand that when you lose one opportunity, it's not the last opportunity. There's going to be an opportunity to address it in other ways. So be patient. Something's going to happen." And he mentioned when you lose one opportunity, that tells me that they may have lost their initial plan for the center position. We know early on they brought in Mitch Morse as a center, and he ended up signing with Jacksonville, I believe.
Jacksonville.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that statement there about the center position? And maybe now, which way do you think that the Steelers are going to be pivoting towards when it comes to that really important position that, the Steelers ended up letting go Mason Cole without a real answer there?
Yeah, I think that Mason Cole's still available. They could always bring him back if they felt the need, at a reduced salary. I think that the plan all along is to get one of these young stud centers out of the draft. And there's 2-3 of them that I think could start as a rookie, especially with Kimiato on one side and Daniels on the other. I think that you put a young center in there. We got to understand that guys like Frazier, 4-year starter out of WVU, Van Bron Granger out of Georgia, 3-year starter, Jackson Powers Johnson, he was a 1-year full-time starter at center, but he was also voted the Remington Award winner as the best center out there. So I think any of these 3 gentlemen could come in and start. And then you got guys like Barton from Duke, BB from Kansas. These guys have experience at center. It ain't like you're asking them to make a position change in the pros. Then it's hard to start a rookie. But if a guy is familiar, there is options out there. But it's, in my opinion, it's past time for them to get their next young legacy center. And that's what I'm wanting to see happen this year. If not, at pick 1 early in round 2, which would probably require a trade up. But that is something they're going to have to definitely address.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to ask you, is like, where do they address it at? This is becoming a position of need. And, sometimes when a team goes into the draft with a position of need in hand, they sometimes can reach. Do you think that this could be the first round pick? I mean, I think there's some more holes out there that are worthy of a first round pick, maybe perhaps the wide receiver position if you're looking for a wide receiver 1. The Steelers signed a couple of guys, but those are just depth filled guys, in my opinion. Nobody that's going to really threaten to be a starter on the opposite side of George Pickens out there. So, do you think that it's possible they go as early as 20 with the center position here? Or is this something they're going to roll the dice on and go into the second round?
Well, I think they look at it, their 2 biggest needs is center and wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I think left tackle or right tackle, as long as you move Broderick Jones back to the left side. But they definitely need a tackle. But I'm getting scared that they think that Dan Moore is a more competent tackle than I do. And if that's the case, they might try to get a tackle in the 3rd or 4th round to kind of groom to eventually replace him or be the right tackle. I can see that happening very easily. But I do believe this is such a deep wide receiver class that it might cause the Steelers or behoove the Steelers to take a center early because the center position is not that deep. Tackles are pretty deep. Wide receiver and cornerback are very deep. So, and somewhere in their line, they need a defensive lineman. They'd love to have a big boy in the middle. So there's a lot of directions that Kahn can go, and I believe he will go. But there's could be 6 wide receivers taken in the first round. I mean, this is such a deep draft, and there's going to be guys like Malachi Corley and Leggetti. A lot of guys is going to go early in the second round that normally go in the first round. So this is a great year to need receivers. And that's why so many people are willing to discuss trading theirs. And I think the depth of the class is one of the reasons why the Steelers traded Deontay Johnson, because I believe there's a lot of upgrades just in the draft through the first 3 rounds. So, but yeah, I'm like you. I don't want them to reach. If they were going to take a center in the first, I'd love to see somebody want that 20th pick where they can move back later in that first round and still get a center that they like, but add an extra pick in the first 2 rounds or 3 rounds because there's a lot of good depth there.
I agree. And moving back, especially like you mentioned, for a position that's usually not, well acquired, mostly in most first rounds. This is a position that is typically, starting in the high second round, third round is when you start to see your centers coming off the board at a good pace there. I would like to see the Steelers move back as well if they can do so. If the center position is the position of need going into it, you have to address it. And I think that they're going to have, their choice of the litter at 20 if they decide to stay there and acquire a center. I think that there's going to be a run on quarterbacks. There's probably going to be a run on, like you mentioned, wide receivers, tackles as well. So when you get to cornerbacks, a few of those are going to get signed. Christian Gonzalez was a cornerback last year that fell too also. So we have to think about that. When you have a class, he fell to what, like 17?
Yeah, to the Patriots, yeah.
Yeah, to where the Steelers were going to be drafting, and nobody thought he'd get out of the top 10. And so when there's a run on a certain position or there's certain positions of need, so to speak, like this year's quarterback and whatnot, I think that that's going to push some of those other players down. And maybe the Steelers can hold off until the second round to get one of those centers. But I do think they're going to have to move up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And as far as the wide receiver room, Lynch, the general manager for the 49ers, came out and spoke about the rumors of Brandon Ayuk to the Steelers, the trade rumors. And he said that they're going to be working with him to try to keep him as a 49er, and basically said that there was nothing to those rumors. What are your thoughts about that? Do you believe him? And do you think that there still could be a possibility that there could be a trade there?
I think a lot of times when they got guys coming up needing an extension, or you're having to franchise tag them, because Deebo Samuel's in a similar boat. And so I think that saying that, he said that there really wasn't a lot of truth to those trade rumors. He's not saying I haven't talked to the Steelers or we haven't talked to other teams about the possibility. But that's just part of the everyday function of a general manager and a front office. They're going to listen to, that doesn't mean you're actively shopping them. So I think there's probably a little truth on both sides. I think that the Steelers are doing Kahn is really playing this offseason perfectly. He's not knee-jerk reaction anything. If he would have went after Fields at the combine, it would probably cost him a second-round pick. But he waited and he waited and he let the market reveal itself. And then he gets him for a 6th round conditional. And I think right now with Tyler Boyd, they're saying Boyd wants 8.5. And I don't think he's worth that myself at this point. And I think Kahn realizes that, and he's like, I'll just wait. There's guys out there like Eric Rowe, who finished the year with the Steelers at safety. He'd be a great guy to bring back his safety depth. And he says he wants to come back, but said it would be a while. The Steelers told him, it'll be a while before. That's going to be that second wave, maybe even after the draft. When like last year when they signed Quan Alexander, Kahn waited till almost training camp before he brought him in. So I think that's what Kahn's doing right now. He's not overpaying anybody. He's not, giving up too much draft capital. He needs it. They need it all right now. So he's just sitting back, and he's just, he's sly. He really is. He's like sly like a fox. And he's, that's why we said with the title, he knows no fear. Because he's not panicking. A lot of us are like, well, they need a center and they need another wide receiver too. They need we're looking at it. It's got to happen right now. And Cud's like, I got this. So he's staying even keel, and I think he's going to put it together, and he's going to make it work. And they'll have a better idea going into the draft. By that point, what they really do need to address. Because I think between now and April 25th, I think it's the first day. I think there's still going to be some things happen, but it might not be for 2 more weeks. But there'll be a trade, there'll be something, because the free agency market is kind of dried up.
Yeah. No, I agree. The free agency market is dry. I mean, you have just Tyler Boyd out there, in my opinion, that's left that could be a guy that can fill a starting position on your wide receiver group. Everybody else, I think, is for the most part depth. And like you said, I don't know if he's really worth that. He's kind of up there in age, 29 years old. I think he only had like 700 and something yards last year.
He kind of looked like he lost the step too.
Yeah, I mean,
I felt like he did.
Yeah, once you get closer to that 30 mark as a wide receiver, you tend to, lose a step and things of that nature. So, if he ends up being a Steeler, I'll root for him and go for him. I just don't know if he's going to be the guy that's going to, move the needle for Mike Tomlin to have out there. I think the Steelers are going to be looking for somebody with a little bit more potential for the future of being a long-term answer. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure you're getting that with Tyler Boyd.
Well, one thing everybody's got to remember, Arthur Smith's offense uses 2 tight end sets and 2 receivers. They don't use that third receiver a lot. They'll run tight ends out of the slot. And so I think if you have Pickens and you get you a stud, a draft pick this year that come in to be that wide receiver too, I think the Steelers feel very comfortable. I think that's why they're not panicking. I think they feel very comfortable if that's the way it works out.
True story, man. I think you're right there. And moving on to Mike Tomlin, he had some interesting things to say as well. He's talked about, and he was asked a lot about the quarterback position and what ensued, with Kenny Pickett. And he just basically stated that Kenny expressed that he thought a change of scenery would be good, and talks were going in the right direction for Justin Fields. So the dominoes fell in the way that they did. And Kenny is in Philadelphia. When asked about the competition aspect about the when it comes to the quarterback position, he said that Russell's going to be in the pole position. Yeah, it doesn't really sound like it's going to be Russell Wilson's going to be. Well, it doesn't really sound like Russell Wilson's going to be the guaranteed starter come week 1 of the regular season. What are your thoughts on what Mike Tomlin said and the thoughts of an actual competition at the quarterback position between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields?
Well, I think it's his plan. Obviously, if he's in the pole position, is Wilson will start out getting first team reps at camp and initially in the preseason. and Wilson's putting in work. He worked with a specialist on his throwing mechanics because he had developed some bad habits in the last few years, and so he's really working on that, cleaning his footwork up and his throwing motion and his torque in his throws. And that's why he shared that video of him throwing, kind of doing a little bit the same as when they work these young prospects out. Throwing the full route tree and showing that he's got the arm and showing his form. He shows better velocity now than he did in the last few years. So, I think it's going to come down to, is Justin Fields going to flourish with less pressure? He's no longer the man. He's not expected to be the man. He's supposed to be able to learn behind Russell Wilson. And if he flourishes in this offense, because Arthur Smith's offense is going to dictate a lot of routes. There's going to be play action, and you're going to have to get the ball out on time and accurately and hit this route. And it'll take because both quarterbacks like to hold the ball too long. They both average over 3 seconds per passing attempt. And they both have been the top 2 most sacked quarterbacks in the last 2 years. So they're both going to have to get past that because the running game is going to put them in favorable down and distances. And then they'll be able to work the play action. But Fields just gives them so many options, whereas he can fake the handoff and then follow Harris or Warren as the lead blocker on a lot of these short yardage goal line. His athleticism, they're going to have to use him. It would behoove them to use him, a package of plays here, a package of plays there, and also figure out what you have for next season. Because next season, you're going to have to pay somebody, whether it's Wilson at 37 years old or Justin Fields at 26. Now, I know what I would want to do if I had my pick. You want to go with the younger guy. So, but I think that Tomlin's saying the right things, but he said that eventually they would be a competition and then Fields would be able to, So, as we've seen over the last few years, that, saying you're the starter, you're the public, it don't really mean a whole lot.
No, not at all. And especially when it comes to the clerical errors that we see. So even when they put something out, it may not be right.
Yep.
So you got to second guess everything. I think that this is staying true to the fact that there is going to be a competition. Nobody's going to be handed the position. That's what they said, when at the end of last season, when the thought was going to be the room was Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. And it doesn't seem like they are, leaning away from that. If you go back and we think about the acquisition of Russell Wilson, that happened like about midnight. Why did it take so long in the middle of the night to come up with this agreement? Was there maybe the agreement that he was going to be, only given the first go ahead at training camp, and then from there it's going to be a competition? I think so. I think there might be some truth to those rumors, and it could be an actual competition. I, like you, would prefer the younger guy. I think that a guy like Justin Fields, he's been in the league a little bit already. He has some NFL starts under his belt. Although he hasn't had the greatest of showing at time, I felt that towards the end last season, he was starting to come around. And I don't think that you get better by not playing football. You know what I mean? I think you get better playing football by playing football. So, hold on, I gotta take care of something.
But a package of plays, at certain points of the game would accomplish one, keeping him. Because if you remember, the Ravens did that with Lamar Jackson. They had Joe Flacco, but they would bring Lamar Jackson in every third series or fourth series, and especially goal line or specialty packages. And I think the Steelers need to, as you say, keep Justin Fields playing and let him get the feel for the offense and let them get a feel for him. So, I agree both guys should play.
Yeah, I do think that there's going to be an opportunity for Justin Fields to take the field if he's the second guy behind Russell Wilson. I do think there's going to be a package for him. I think, Mike Tomlin, from all accounts, seems like he's, in fact, he loves this kid, right?
Yeah, always has. Yeah,
it appears, right? Like even going back to his pro day.
yeah.
Yeah, he talked here, here recently, said that he's oozing of potential, and I think he is. I mean, this guy's very accurate with the football. He's got the ability to move around, the mobility aspect, and I think he has it upstairs. He scored like a 130 on that IQ test. Just kind of.
I don't remember.
Yeah, no, yeah, he scored
Yeah.
a 130 on the aptitude test, and just for some comparison, I think Kenny Pickett had 17. Ben Roethlisberger was like 29, somewhere around there. So it's up there. Brock Purdy was around 101, and so he's got it above the shoulders. I think he just needs to put it all together, and if he can sit behind Russell Wilson, let's just say that's the goal, right? He's going to sit behind him and then play. Justin said early on in his career that he liked Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's game was similar to his. And so why not have who better to kind of guide him than Russell Wilson? So I like it. I'm excited about this tandem. Going into the season, I'm excited.
I think
how it's going to go down.
Oh yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for Fields. Like I said, coming out of high school, he's always been the man. He was expected to carry the whatever team he was on, and it didn't work out at Georgia, but he got to Ohio State, and he really had the huge season. And so I believe getting drafted as high as he did with the Bears, he was thrown in a bad situation, didn't have the supporting cast, didn't have the coaching staff. Now, hopefully we'll get to see what he can be when all the pressure is not on him. But my whole thing is with a quarterback like Justin Fields, running quarterbacks struggle to win the Super Bowl. We've seen Lamar Jackson. He hasn't been able to get there. Other guys, if that's their predominant trait, and what I mean is you can't learn to stand in the pocket and face down the rush and throw while you're getting hit in the mouth, to complete a big play. If you have that ability to run, your instinct is to get out of the pocket and make a big play. But, eventually in a playoff situation or against a better defense, you can't do that. You can't escape the pocket every time. Sometimes you're going to have to take the big hit. So you got to have the durability, the toughness. One of the things I always said about Kenny Pickett, my biggest concern about him was his lack of durability. He was very injury prone. Well, Justin Fields is 6'3", 230. He's solid muscle. He takes big hits because he's a runner, and he can handle that. And even Russell Wilson showed toughness as much as he's been sacked. But Justin Fields, the only question is, can he learn to stand in the pocket and go through the progressions and be smart about when to leave the pocket and when not? The master of that is Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is nowhere near the athlete that Fields is. But that dude, he just got a feel for the game. He's like a point guard. He flows out, always keeps his head up, and he either scrambles for good yardage or he finds somebody open. Now, who else used to do that all the time? Big Ben. Ben was like a point guard. He played point guard in high school when he played basketball. And you've seen that. That's what I want to see from Justin Fields, is the decision-making. Because I've watched him now for 3 years, and he turns the ball over a lot. And he's always trying to make a big play. It's really not there. And instead of just taking the 3 or 4 yards and getting down, he tries to fight through a tackle, gets stripped and fumbles, or, forces the ball down the field for an interception. If he could clean up that judgment and get a little more instinctual of when and to leave the pocket and when to run, the guy can be an incredible weapon, an incredible player. And I don't know if you remember, 2 years ago, he had over 1,000 yards rushing. And then, everybody's like, well, he needs to throw from the pocket better, right?
Mhm.
Well, last year they told him, stay in the pocket. We want you to be a pocket passer. Well, you could tell there was times that he was so uncomfortable because he didn't feel natural. He didn't feel like he could use his natural abilities and instincts. So it's going to come down to him, and can he harness that?
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, I mean, he has to stay in the pocket a little bit because last year he was sacked
Yep.
so many times.
Yep.
So, you got to be there.
Well, they asked him to stay in the pocket. That's what I'm
Right.
saying. And he just, that's why he got sacked so much, because he would just stand there and take the sack. Whereas, the year before, he'd have been scrambling.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. And he even came out in a press conference once where he stated something to the effect that he just kind of wants to go out there and play football, and all
Yep.
this thinking stuff is making him it's slowing him down.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously at that point, it just seems at that point the game's it's just a little bit too quick for him. Can it slow down for him? That's going to be the question, right? And the Steelers have Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. He did great things with Ryan Tannehill. Let's see what he can do with somebody like Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. And I'm excited about this team, in the direction that they're going. I think that by the time it's all said and done, this is going to be a team that's going to be ready to compete this year. I think that they aren't, they're not, just blowing smoke when they say that they're going to compete for a Super Bowl this year. I think this is an actual plan. I know that, the quarterback position is a question mark, but if they end up getting it right, I mean, this could be a really solid team starting the year.
Yeah, I see a lot of potential. The first step is that offense got to improve, Daniel. I mean,
Yeah.
we've just had 3 years in a row of just, it's not good.
No.
But we have got rid of Matt Canada. We've got all new quarterbacks. We got So I believe that the talent, especially with the rest of free agency and the draft, Kahn filling these holes, I believe they can be drastically improved and be a true contender. And they're going to have to do that just to stay competitive in that division.
Right. No, I'm not saying that the team's going to the Super Bowl either. I'm saying that they're acting as if they're going all in for that, to be a contender, to be a Super Bowl run. That's one thing that Kahn had said in his meeting. He said that, this past February, they were on the couch at home watching the football game, and they want to be in the stadium, and they're going to do what they can to do so. And I think to this point, outside of the quarterback position, I like what they've done. I like the acquisitions. I like the direction they're going. I think that center is going to be a huge priority in this upcoming draft. And, if they end up getting one of those guys, those 3 guys at the top there, I think they're going to have a stud for a few years there, if not, a decade. And, I'm excited for this team. I'm excited where they're going to go. This team, despite, anything and what happened, the Steelers, they went 5-1 last year in the division.
Yeah.
And they had no offense. So imagine with an offense. So that's why I'm excited. I'm excited because I think that this defense is going to be one of the better ones. I mean, Patrick Queen, that signing was huge. That was probably the biggest piece that the Steelers needed, was the middle linebacker piece. And by going out there and getting the top dog, that should tell you that they mean business, and they knew that was a significant hole for their defense. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where they go from here. There's only going to be more news to be broken from here until the draft. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Shannon, do you have any final words for everybody before we let everyone go?
Well, I just want to say we've talked about it on here and on my other podcast. And I know that some of my colleagues are tired to hear me say it, but change nothing and nothing changes. And we cannot accuse Kahn and them of that this year. Last year, they started changing the way they, roster building and team construction. And we're seeing more of it this year. And you got to give them credit. They're trying. As you say, signing Patrick Queen, the number one guy in any free agency position. The Steelers just don't do that. and they set the market at 13.5. And I know a lot of the guys behind him wasn't happy about that because everybody thought he was going to get 17, 18. Kahn, he got him in there at 13.5. So I have a lot of faith in Kahn, and I'm excited to see the rest of this offseason in the draft.
I agree. Stay tuned, y'all. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell if you haven't done so. That way you get notified anytime we do go live or whenever Steel Curtain Network puts out any content. Sometimes we get some breaking news that'll come out, and also sometimes the audio only podcast will air on YouTube. You don't want to miss them, so make sure you do all that. With that being said, Shannon, take us out.